Good afternoon. So we're finishing our COVID-19 video series on helps to increase immunity, increase resistance, if you get it, what you can do to help treatment and mitigate inflammation. And we're now in that second half. We're winding up some increased resistance and moving into, if you were to get it, some things that would help you do what you can do at home. So we were finishing up some helps at the very end, and I talked about making a nasal spray, and I labeled mine for each of my children. I put their name on it, and 3 of the children are out of the home, and 3 of the children are in the home. I have 3 students one's an intern and 2 medical students, and then 1 nursing student that's doing it online, and the medical students are online too now, and then 2 I still homeschool. But the saline, these are just a simple saline spray, and I added xylitol, which is a natural sugar that kills bacteria, and it comes from birch tree, and it prevents the virus from attaching to the mucosa, or let's say it greatly hinders it. We don't actually know exactly, but we know the research shows that it decreases it. So I'm thinking of everything possibly I can. I know it grows almost the quickest, like an air on copper, so I added copper, colloidal copper. You can get colloidal silver at health food stores. You can get colloidal silver online, and I make my colloidal silver, and I put some colloidal silver in it and some zinc. I took a capsule of 25 milligrams and split it up 5 ways and put 1 in there, and I'll just shake that, and I spray that before I go to the office or go to the hospital or the bank or the grocery store, anywhere I have to go. And my oldest son is an intern, so before he goes to the hospital, and at noon and in the afternoon and when he comes home. So he's just kind of mitigating the chance that if that virus is in the air or it happens to be in his nasal mucosa. Now, I haven't done this, but you could take artificial tears, a bottle of artificial tears, and none of these things are really toxic to the eye. I would probably do smaller amounts, much smaller, a few drops of colloidal silver, a few drops of colloidal copper, and a little bit of zinc, and a little bit of xylitol, and you know, with caveats that you have to. There's nothing that's shown that's safe or not safe, so you'd have to do that all on your own. And you know, you could put a drop in there in your nasal mucosa if you think you're going to a place where you're really, really exposed. But I mentioned before that probably better would be clear glasses that fit tightly up against your eyebrow and your inferior orbital rim and out here. And then when you come home, it would be really important, I don't think I mentioned this, when you come home from any public place, wash your face. Wash your eyebrows, wash your lashes. You get more allergens from seasonal allergy, from allergens stored on your eyebrows and your eyelashes and your eye skin. Your eyelid skin is so thin that some of those allergens go straight through the skin into the eye. But this virus could replicate, and with a tear moving down and you've got leftover water on your eye, that virus could move up into your eye. So when you come in from a public place, anywhere that you've been traveling, anywhere, go wash your face. And I would encourage you to have your family wash their face at least once in the middle of the day, and then at night well. Okay, so now we're going to go through some treatment. If you think you're having some symptoms, and you know, I'm sure you've read, and this treatment, of course, is supportive. And I'm going to open up with saying some is supportive, some is antiviral treatment. But you can have a conjunctivitis, which is a red eye, as an early symptom. Just a red eye, a red irritated eye, maybe a little extra watery. All right, they've reported that loss of smell may be an early sign of COVID virus. Headache, sore throat, aches and pains, and difficulty breathing. And we're going to call that shortness of breath and fever. Okay? And headache and sore throat. And so, here is the most important thing. If you have shortness of breath, before you get to where you may have COVID, this is some things that you should do with your family. you should look at their oral mucosa and notice the color, and they should in the mirror and in the bathroom. Then you can pull your lower lid down and look into the, I'm going to put some hand gel on my hand, and I haven't been anywhere today, and I washed my hands several times even before I started. Now alcohol will burn your eyes, so you want that to wear off here. But you want to take your hand and you want to look at your ocular mucosa. And you want to look at that color there and see what does that look like, your color. And your nasal mucosa, and then your fingernail beds, your color for your fingernail beds. Be smart, because when you get the COVID virus, it just has a propensity for the lungs, and we'll talk about how it damages the lungs in a minute. But it decreases the ability of the red blood cells to catch oxygen in the blood and then deliver oxygen to the tissues. Greatly does that. So then, when you get shortness of breath, you start getting less oxygen delivery. And then you get what we call pallor. That means you're pale. And so you can check your eyes, you can check your mouth, you can check your nail beds, and you can see how, and then what would be a wise thing to do is, if you don't have it now, buy an inexpensive pulse oximeter. And you can just put pulse oximeter, but we call it oximeter. It measures the oxygen. It just gets right here and measures the oxygen in your blood. That is so critical. If you don't have one, look at the mucosa and see what it looks now, and then you can tell if you have pallor. But if someone has shortness of breath or difficulty taking a breath, or they get, I'm going to write it up here. If they get shortness of breath and they get increasing delirium, or their mental status changes, a change in mental status, or an increase in weakness, or increase in shortness of breath, increase in weakness, and they're pale, you need to go to the hospital. You need to call the hospital if you can, and then get in the car and go. Let them know you're coming, and let them know who you have and what you have. So do not try to treat COVID virus at home. If you are moving into shortness of breath, change of mental status, shortness of breath, you're getting more pale, more weak, you've noticed that someone is doing poorly, then you need to go to the hospital. But up until that point, let's say you're one of the majority that's going to have an infection that doesn't progress. What can you do to support yourself, number one, and number two, maybe treat it at home? So there's some great reports on the mission field of some things that are actually good for treatment. That means fight the virus at home. So I'm going to mention those first. So the most important thing is something called a combination of these three. Increase your quercetin so that you have 400 milligrams at least 4 times a day. That drops down the interleukin-6 and the TNF that causes a lot of the trouble. It doesn't mitigate everything, but it helps. Zinc and copper, again, it makes your environment inhospitable to the virus. And then you want to onion soup made with chicken broth and lots of garlic, like a whole garlic. So what would you do? Maybe take a quart of chicken broth, 2 to 3 onions, slice them up, and a whole garlic floret. And you can just grind that up. And then you can use just boil it on the stove, or you can use your pressure cooker, and you can let that, set it on the back and let that steep for 2 or 3 hours. And you want just the liquid, you can pour it through a sieve, and just save that that nice chicken garlic onion soup. And then what I've done is I've made that up, and then I put it in my freezer baggies, and I've frozen it, so I have several of those baggy concentrates left that I would add to more chicken broth. And you can buy organic chicken broth at the grocery store. You can make your own with the chicken and put some herbs where it tastes good to you. Again, and you want to keep the fat in it. You want to keep everything in that chicken broth, especially if it's a grass-fed chicken, a healthy chicken. But you want to add that, and you want to use this for hydration. So we're going to talk now for support. So the treatment at home is quercetin, zinc, copper, onion, chicken broth, and then number 4 is increasing your vitamin C. And you want to go up to, if you can, that phospholipid, I've told you about phospholipid vitamin C, making it with lecithin to about 10 grams a day. And you can spread that out to the day, through the day, so you don't get a soft stool. You probably can't take 10 grams of vitamin C if you don't make phospholipid-coated C. You'll just have to take anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 a day spread through the day. So a person that has COVID at home, you want them to be in their own room, and you want them to take these things. Now, secondly, so we're going to mark that off. We're going to go down to some pharmaceutical treatment in just a minute. So support. So there's a couple of things that you want to do. You want to keep them separate from the rest of the members of the house, and most people know that. You want to use their own bathroom and their own things, but they must stay well hydrated. So that's the most thing. So you want to give them lots of water, lots of decaffeinated herb tea. You want to, and then really use this onion and chicken broth, and I'm going to say garlic chicken broth, and you want to do about a cup every 30 minutes to an hour. You know, you want to just keep their hydration going so their lymphatics are open, and this is also antiviral. 30 minutes to an hour. You want them to keep up their hydration. Now, how else can you want to keep their lungs hydrated? So, for their lungs to be hydrated, you can do several ways to do that. You can use a humidifier in the room, and you can use a nebulizer. And you can just use saline. And you just want to be sure that your saline is not, that you made that with distilled water. You don't want to be putting amoeba or any bacteria from local water or outside water. You want to use distilled water that you've boiled an hour. And so put that in your nebulizer and humidifier. Now, as an added thing to open up those lungs, if you want to add a few drops of eucalyptus oil, that will really help to open up the lungs. And so if you have a nebulizer, this little nebulizer, it comes from one at home that I got when the children were really young. You just put your saline here and a couple of drops of eucalyptus oil, just 1 or 2, and that will help really open up their bronchial tree. Now, the other thing you can do is, if really easy for their lungs, is a shower, a hot shower, and they can just sit in there or sit on the floor. And you can, this is something cheap I bought at Dollar Tree too. It's just a mentholatum type thing. And you can just put that on between your upper lip and nose so they kind of breathe that in the shower. And so you can add, I'll just say mentholatum on that kind of, to help keep their lungs hydrated. And so during the day you want to watch their fever. You don't want it so hot that it rouses their fever, but you want a little, it's just something different for them to do. And if they're able to do that and have a mild disease and can safely get in and out of the shower. So those are just things that you can help by keeping them hydrated. Now, then also, it's not as if when you have diarrhea, you have to support them with electrolytes. When they're just breathing and fever, it's usually just water. So you can use some Propel or Pedialyte Pops or Propel added ever so often through the day, a little bit of electrolytes or something to help a little bit, but mostly they're just losing water and their system becomes very thick and osmotically thick, and you want to just keep them really hydrated so that their lymphatic systems can move and everything else can move. Now, back to the prescriptions. We have some really good evidence that hydroxychloroquine, and chloroquine is a malaria drug. Hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin are great together, and the interesting thing is we know now a little bit of how they work, and I'll get to that next.